Hello everybody and welcome to our Empower Ed discussion with PAG's profile today. And it's going to be a really insightful and helpful, I'm sure it's going to be helpful, I can see the amount of detail that you're going to go away with, session where we're going to be talking about managing anxiety and managing differences in behaviours from in pupils and young people. So I'm delighted to be joined by several guests today, which is unusual. So we've got Felicia from PAGS. Welcome, Felicia.
Hello, Lucy. Yeah, and hello everyone who is listening.
And then we've also got Claire and Simon, who are both from NACRO Education. Claire and Simon, do you want to introduce yourselves first?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Lucy. Hi, everybody. My name's Claire Kirk, and I'm Vice Principal at NACRO, and I'm also the Designated Safeguarding Lead. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, Lucy, and thanks for inviting us as well. Hi, everybody, for everyone who's listening. I'm Simon Ashton. I'm the Assistant Principal for NACRO's education centres across the country, and Claire will touch on shortly who we are and what we're about, so people who aren't familiar with our type of provision.
Fabulous, thank you. It's lovely to have you both here today. And Felicia, you and I, we've had a chat before, haven't we? And last time we gave our listeners so many helpful tips and strategies, and I know that we're going to come across some of that again today. So if you're listening, I'll get a pen and paper ready because you're going to have lots of ideas to take away. So Felicia, welcome, and do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Felicia Gibson. I'm the founder and the CEO of PAGS, Assessment and Provision. And what PAGS is about is improving children's chances in education and professional life after that. And I'm so delighted that in our session today, we have NACRO Education, an absolutely outstanding, I would say, provision that we are very happy to work with them.
Oh, fabulous! And you guys have worked together before, haven't you? I feel like as a company, you've helped NACRO to support some students and young people. Is that correct?
I think we are just at the beginning. Simon, if you want to have more details on here.
Yeah, we're in the really early stages of a partnership, but we're working with PAGS to really support the young people that we have with additional needs, to sort of track and monitor their progress, assess them, and make sure that they're getting the outcomes they need to progress. So we're really excited to work with PAGS, and we're looking forward to sort of implementing the PAGS system from September. We're all that implementation stage is now done, so we're good to go.
Oh, brilliant. Amazing. So we're going to work through some slides to show you all today. And we're going to be talking all about the strategies and some advice really on how to look after young people and pupils who maybe have anxiety or they're displaying differences in behaviours. So we really hope this session will be very helpful. So should we share the slides now, Felicia? Is that good?
That would be great, yeah. So we really want our audience to take away something from this session.
That's great, thank you. And so today we're going to be thinking about those pupils who really struggle. And you know, I was a Senko. For those of you who know me, know that I was a Senko for 10 years and an inclusion lead. And I myself have looked after a lot of pupils who really sometimes find school very challenging and very difficult. And there's a lot of things that we can put in place and a lot of strategies that we can do to help support them. And we're going to go through those today. And the first question I suppose I've got is like, because it's hard, isn't it? How do you go from reacting all the time to being proactive? I mean, I've been in that situation where I arrived at a new school and there was lots of children who were really struggling, like a lot of children. And I found it really difficult to come out of that reacting stage and give myself time to work out what the proactive stage was. So have you got any top tips? Because that's really tough. When you're in that situation, it's hard, isn't it? What's your advice, everyone?
Absolutely, it is really tough, and you know, I think we experience that at NACRO every day, as do our teaching staff and our support staff. But I think there's some of the preventative strategies for managing challenging behaviour, and absolutely central, and to me the basic prerequisite for that are building those positive relationships with students and ensuring that classroom environment is structured and safe. I think it's about looking at those social and emotional learning programs that you can introduce, looking at positive behaviour interventions and support, so including things around restorative practices between students, and very much looking at it through that being trauma aware and trauma sensitive. And that's really what is the basis of our work with NACRO, with the students that we work in. I think it's about providing those opportunities for students to develop those self-regulation skills as well. A lot of the students that we work with at NACRO come from lots of areas of deprivation. They've had previous less than positive experience within mainstream schools or colleges, and they may have been excluded from provision as well due to behaviour issues. So it's really important for us that when they come to us, that staff take that time and have their space to build up those positive relationships that are very much based on mutual respect and understanding.
That's lovely, Claire. I mean, and it's really hard, isn't it? Because when a child is displaying anxiety, that your initial reaction is obviously to go and support that child. But if that's all you're able to do, because that's all you've got time for, how do you step out of that kind of zone that you're in? You know, who do you go and find help and support from, and how do you do that?
I will jump in here, and I'll say that by nature, for instance, we tend to react to behavior, and that it evolves that we need to shift. We need a shift in this school culture. So the behavior is embedded in our emotions, and the reason for which we can be both internally and externally, as is in our slide. And these issues that need to be taken in consideration before behavior improves. So behavior has a communicative function, and then before we try to modify, we have to understand it. And could be internal factors, and it could be something that stems from fearing of failing, of fearing of being judged, or fearing of being criticized, or could be the cognitive overload. The task that we design could be very complex. Could be the fact that there is an inability to self-regulate and then have trauma, like Claire was mentioning, and also have some lack of coping mechanisms and unmet needs. And for this, it's really important for us to understand the developmental stages and the developmental steps that are missing in child trajectory. So for this, we have in PACS self-regulation module, which is looking intrinsically of what competencies the child should be developed by a certain age, 5 to 7, 7 to 11, and 11 plus. If we add on this that we have internal factors and we have also external factors, the external factors might be that it is the peer pressure, could be families, the issues that are stemming from there, could be also classroom or learning behavior, or also expectation that have been set. So we really have to understand those underlying issues and what triggers the behavior. And understanding this will allow us to devise the right strategies and intervention that will be after that implemented. And having this self-person approach is absolutely crucial.
I absolutely agree. And just going back to that point you made, Luce, as well, about just how hard it is for staff as well. And I think for me, as a leader, it's about having that whole school and that whole college, whole organisation approach to it. You know, it's not just about training. It's about what do we have in place that provides staff with that comprehensive set of tools and that support that goes beyond just training. You know, staff really need to feel that they're able to say, I'm not okay, you know, this is hard, because it absolutely is. And I think there needs to be that open culture within an organisation, within a school, that enables staff to be able to say, okay, you know, this is tough, you know, I need some help with this, because it is really tough. And I think that goes far beyond training. That goes, you know, into looking at those support mechanisms, those reflective practice pieces, that peer support. And we're going to come on to collaboration with other agencies, but I think that's absolutely key as well. So that's another point that I think is really really important.
Oh, thanks, Claire.
And I guess everyone's covered the things that I was going to touch upon, but I guess for me, it's just that what's the why behind the behaviour? What are the strategies and things that we're thinking about? So whether that's when a young person starts provision, thinking about that initial assessment, what is the why? What are the triggers? But let's make it predictable. You know, there's always a reason for it, but understanding that it's safe, supportive environment, but making it predictable. And the way we set out our classrooms and things like that, and our approach has a really good way of preventing even some really small things around with the way we put chairs, where people sit, is such a really important thing to consider with young people. That might just prevent those behaviours and make them understand and predict what's going on. So yeah, that's just a bit to add.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because actually it's really I don't think people really consider their environment enough sometimes. I mean, like, and I'm guilty of that too. I mean, I've been teaching since I was 18. I trained as a teacher when I was 18. So I've been teaching a long time. And the best year that I ever taught was when we created a home. We changed our classroom into a home environment. So we had cushions, we had chairs to sit on, we had comfy spaces, we had lamps, we had pot plants, it was more of a home than it was a classroom. If you could sort of sense the homely vibe around the room. And children's anxiety and behaviour really calmed down, and we all did, actually. Everybody felt at ease in that environment, and that helps a lot. You know, if the adults are feeling at ease, the children will too. So you're absolutely right in terms of what you're saying. Behaviour and anxiety is a very complex picture, and underneath all of that, there's a lot of underlying reasons why children or young people might be displaying anxiety and behaviour. And one day it could be different to the next day, and in fact sometimes the same day is different. So can you tell us a little bit, Felicia, perhaps you can sort of help us with that, like how do we know what these underlying reasons are, and is it important? Let's ask that question.
I think the underlining, we have to understand what is behind this behavioral issues that we have in the classroom. And I would link in here with what Claire said, that the staff is under humongous pressure nowadays. And then I'm just referring to the Senkos, that we feel sometimes that we are failing our students, but there is so much work that needs to be done, and the Senkos are actually superhero in a school, because they have to do an impressive amount of work, not only dealing with the issues and being called in the classroom, but also doing their own lessons, devising interventions, putting the interventions in place, and having all this paperwork that has to be done, and reporting and all that stuff. So for this prompts us to why we develop PACS, for streamlining all these processes and making a lot easier for the Senkos. But going back to the classroom environment and understanding the child, I think is really important for us to be able to analyze those issues and to have these observations and answers that will help us to provide the best interventions and put interventions in place, and have a way of monitoring if those interventions are efficient, or if I need to change them, or if I need to adapt them, what resources do I need to be able to achieve those steps. So first, we have to understand the influencing factors around the behavior. Then we also have to identify the triggers. What is the transition between the classes? Is transition from home to school, dropping in the driveway? Is understanding the stressor? Is in a canteen, is too much light or too much noise? That's just a couple of examples. And after that, we will be able to address those needs and address the behavior. And then once those issues are settled, that when we employ this one person, like self-person centered approach, that actually is helping us to streamline all these processes and being able to pull them up at the school level and to see what is improving in our school. Is the attendance better? Is the engagement better in the lessons? And creating and developing those skills that in the future will equip the children with resilience and other strategies.
So for those of us who are new to the role of SENCO inclusion lead or additional needs lead, how do you go about understanding what those underlying needs are? What do you do to find out that information? Because it's tricky, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. And I know for us at NACRO, we might have young people who come to us who have been disengaged with education or not within education for some time, and having that information very early on is absolutely crucial. We may have young people that have moved across local authority areas who may be in care or have been in care as well, and absolutely having that information early on to enable us to assess those needs and identify those issues and prepare for them is really important. And I think we come on to talk again around that collaboration piece with other agencies as well. And I think it also goes back to what we've talked about, the environment, to be able to create an environment where young people feel able to discuss those problems and their fears and their concerns in a safe way. Young people that we work with, they feel safe to disclose to us because we're their safe place. They may be involved with a multitude of other agencies as well who are supporting them, but it is us that they're coming to every day. So I think there's lots of different components and elements that we need to have in place, and then picking up on that piece around, okay, what's working well, what isn't, what do we need to revisit? So that reflective practice piece as well, and really utilising those peer support networks across the piece, which we rely on heavily at NACRO because we're so dispersed nationally. So we work really hard to build up those networks and share those resources, and get staff and SENCOs to go out to other centres to see what's working well.
I like that a lot, and I used to also talk to people about actually spending time with that young person. It's not time wasted, is it?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And, we often talk around, when we're looking at academic, attainment of young people, we often talk around that, an awful lot of our work when young people join us in September, that first term is really looking at those issues to prepare them before they even get in the classroom. So it's absolutely important to be able to take that time, and also for leaders to enable and resource that time for the SENCO, for the support staff to be able to have that time. And I think at NACRO, what we benefit from as well is that we work with very small class sizes as well. So we may have class sizes of where there's 8 or 9, young people. And again, that enables that relationship building and that trust and mutual respect as well between the staff member and the young person. That's really important.
Without that relationship with the teacher, without understanding that becomes really difficult to sometimes understand where they are. And we can find out from other agencies and all the people that work with them, but actually sitting down with a young person is the key to understand what the triggers might be, what support they need, and start to really understand the starting points and where they are on their journey and where they go. So PAGS for us is a really important part of where we're going, because we want to be able to assess young people, really get those starting points right. We know that, but then actually how can we track them and give them really, some people need really small steps, really small targets that are achievable, and over time that builds confidence, doesn't it? And I think for some people, particularly that we have at NACRO, that maybe haven't had the best experience or have moved around a lot or have been home educated and come into further education for the first time, small wins, building confidence is really, really important, and making sure that they can see progress from wherever their starting point may be. And I think that's the one thing that we've really seen over the last couple of years, is actually take every person as an individual, and everyone's journey is different, and actually we need to understand that rather than having that sort of one size fits all, and that's the key.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you spend a lot of time with the young person. You get to know them, you build up that relationship. You then reach out to all those around that young person, you know, external agencies, family, those who know the child or young person well. Find out about the child as much as possible, because, and you know, it's amazing how good they are, how good those young people are at telling you there's something wrong here, and I don't like it. You know, a lot of them can label exactly what it is that's wrong. And unless you spend that time really finding that out and building that relationship up, as you say, then, you know, you're not going to find those things out. And then your journey with that child or young person will be a lot harder, because they'll keep repeating, you know, behaviors and anxiety, which you're obviously trying to support them with. And that's how I used to support children, or when they used to come to my school, the first thing I'd do is find out all about the child, spend a lot of time with them, and then I'd reach out to those external providers. And then once we had a plan together, then we would all work together to put that plan into place, because collaboration is really key, isn't it, Felicia?
It is absolutely important, and collaboration is kind of missing, I feel, in education. We work in different silos and everybody's doing their bit. So we have to pull all these processes together, and we work with Google Sheets and then that document and then that document and that. So what we try to do, we try to get all these processes in one place. Mm-hmm. And I think that I go back to the holistic approach and understanding the child from all aspects. I mean, this comprehensive overview and communication, interaction, social interaction, and self-regulation and cognition learning is really, really important, because matches all what we have in Code of Practice and SEND Code of Practice. But I'll go back to, I want to really make a point on what I've seen in NACRO. I had the privilege to visit the Sheffield provision. And the minute that you step into the environment, you could see the nurturing and the attention to details that is being paid to the children, to the students, and understanding them. And then it's what is really, really important, and I work myself in a provision like this, is the fact that NACRO managed to emulate all these learning, working environments, then preparing them for the next step and the next step. That means going from a real career. So you are doing the bricklaying here, but then you will be having the opportunity to get a job later. And I think having this strategy and vision for the child to say, I am here at this point and I have a bag of issues, but I am here to be helped. And then you are here to be helping them. So you got that privilege, because it's a win-win. Now we give, they give, and then we all win in this process. I think NACRO managed something really incredible. I don't think so people, they understand how fortunate they are to go and attend those sessions, and is laudable for the fact that you have the opportunity to practice those skills before you go to a real job. And you went through the extra step, even so transferring those skills that you are practicing in your settings, in work experience. So you've got some work experience with us, I think at Tesco, something you were saying to me, Simon. And then just imagine that you have the opportunity to track all this history. So we've got a section in PACS that it actually is like a timeline to what is happening to the child. What is that behavior? Is this a concern? Is this something about the career? And having that information that will stay with the child as long as is needed. I think we are missing a lot in education, because everything is just in this place and this place and this place, and putting all together is really important. And this is what we try to, we actually provide in our platform in PACS.
That's perfect, thank you. And there's lots of strategies, aren't there, that we can put in place, you know, to support young people and children with just being in school. Sometimes not even the learning bit, just being in school. So can you sort of share some of your favourites that might help others with young people they're supporting?
Certainly, I would start with developing skills and understanding first where the child is, and after that, being able to develop those skills, these coping mechanisms that the students would need. I'm referring them to children, but actually in NACRO, we talk about students, and being able to have the short brain breaks like we need, not only the children, but also us, and also to develop this behavior to be, I think Claire made a really good point on when this reflecting, reflecting practices and what works well and what needs to be adjusted, and restorative practices, which is really important. And
I think
Claire would like to add more, or Simon, I think would be great. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's just probably going back and touching on that collaboration piece. And I think Felicia mentioned how important that is. And I think what we find at NACRO is we have young people who come to us who are involved with so many agencies. They may be involved with social services, yacht teams, mental health services, but sometimes young people are tired of talking to lots of different people about the same concerns and issues. So I think it's really important that we do all, work better together, become together in one space, so we can absolutely focus on that young person, because I think that can be hard for young people sometimes, to be able to keep talking about the same issues. And also the other piece for me is absolutely about that environment and what we really try at NACRO. So although, we have branding in all of our centres, they're all very different as well. So we want everybody to have, the same NACRO experience to the same standard, but we absolutely want young people to feel that they own that environment as well. It's theirs. So we seek their feedback on what they want that to look like. What do they want in their classroom? What makes them feel comfortable? What makes them want to come in? So if they've had previous negative experience in classrooms where, it's just been a sea of desks, okay, what can we do differently? Because we have to be different. If we have 16, 17-year-olds who have, moved around provision, they're really, disillusioned with education in many cases. We have to be different, and we have to listen to them and make them part of that solution.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, so what advice have we all got to those who are in school, who perhaps have many children like I had who are suffering from behaviour challenges or anxiety? What's your top tips, do you think?
For me, and I think we've talked about that, building up those relationships and that mutual respect in terms of dealing with and responding to behaviours. I think it's about the consistency with that. So whilst we might respond differently to young people, understanding, the root causes of that behaviour, once we understand that, then I think we have to be consistent. We know that young people, it's that trust that they know what those responses will be, and also that they can be part of agreeing what that looks like. So that positive affirmation, and that isn't about ignoring behaviour that is challenging, but it's about that young person really understanding, okay, if I exhibit this behaviour, this is what, would be the consequences. So for me, following that mutual respect and building relationships, it's that consistency, because young people feel safe with structure and consistency. If they don't have consistency, it creates that fear, which then further exacerbates some of those behaviour and that anxiety as well.
Oh, thanks, Claire. What about you, Simon? Have you got any top tips?
I guess the predictability thing is really important in the relationships. However, I guess we've got the bit where they know what to expect when things happen, but also let's celebrate, because we said earlier, some young people sometimes find it really difficult to walk through the door at the start of a school day or of a college day, and some, achieve certain things. However, we always want to celebrate, those milestones that are really, really important, and some struggle to get praise or never have had praise. So it's really important, although we may have behaviour challenges and we need to respond to them in a really positive way, we also celebrate when things are going well, no matter how big or small they are, taking into account their starting points and where they've been. So I think it's a really important thing to always remember, is that we can always focus so much on the negatives, but actually positive things are really important. If we can get them engaged with those relationships and knowing what to expect, to be predictable, we celebrate things, well, that's when curriculum starts to work well, and they engage. As Felicity's talked about there, seeing bricklaying and animal care and all the things going on. People can engage, and they've got a curriculum that thinks about, well, where do I go next? Whereas sometimes they just want to know what's going to happen that day or even the next day. You celebrate and start to think further forward. Will only support, or once you get all those little bits together, you can start to support them with where they go next.
You guys have so beautifully put that actually safety, security, positivity, understanding, what's happening, all of those things are really, really important. They're like the foundations. And then we have the experts like Felicia come in, who can help us with that next layer of information to take that child from, I'm here and I'm at school, I'm feeling okay, but now I want to start the learning. How do we do the next bit, Felicia? What do we do? We've managed to this point. What other advice have you got for teachers at this point?
Well, I will just wrap it up from all the points that has been made in here in our discussion. And I think it is being proactive rather than being reactive. I think we have to try to understand where the issues are before we try to change anything. Behavior is one of the hot topics nowadays. So everyone talks about shifting in the school culture into a positive and then have less punitive and negative enforcement. I think Simon said a very important thing, to celebrate those achievements. And then we have to understand the child to have the trajectory, and then to put those things in place and to be able to celebrate what has been achieved. Because dealing with those issues on a day-to-day basis can also erode ourselves. So we have to look after our staff and their well-being. They will be happy, the students will be happy. So creating this nurturing environment, reflecting on our teaching practices as well, and being able to adapt. We all the time learn. That means that's why we created Impact's possibility of, you've got the strategies in there, you have the assessment of the child, you've got the targets, you can add your own strategy, so contributing organically and share it at the level of organizations. And then also you'll be able to celebrate those achievements, which are so important, because if we continually repeat what is negative in the child's life, that is going to be embedded. That is another part of the story. You don't need to repeat that again. What has been said is been said, but what is going to be happening tomorrow? And I will, the advice for the teachers is to be the difference. We have all on our website, paxprofile.com, lots of resources and guides and strategies. And the one that is just been published now is called Demystifying SEN Learning. And I think that this is all gives away lots of strategies and other things that the teachers can download and then apply them into practice. The same as inviting them into a dialogue with us. So we are here to collaboratively working, and Claire was saying beautifully, this collaboration is paramount. So this is how we bring all this processes together and then create the difference. We can be really changing the lives of children. And then if we are there doing that is really amazing. So be the difference is my last.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I know that our listeners, I'm sure you've all jotted down loads of notes. I would have done as a Senko. It's been fabulous to talk to you all and gain your insights and knowledge and expertise. And and you can feel quite lonely as a member of staff who's supporting a young child or a pupil that's going through anxiety and behaviour, because you don't want them to feel like that. You want them to feel better and happy about being in school. And if you're feeling like that and you've got some questions or you want to reach out for some support, you can either get in touch with us at headteacherchat.com, or you can head over to your website. Is that correct, Felicia?
Yeah, that's